I learned today at work that you can make a chatbot. So you can use Copilot to make a chatbot on specific guidance. So we have this bucket or team site full of chock-a-block of guidance, and people have been moaning that they can't find anything.
Nobody's putting it in my eyes
until today. Until chatbot little man, I guess he's a man, he's coming, and I was like playing about with it. I was like training him.
I'll tell you what, this is going to be, that is amazing, and it's going to be a game changer for parenting. Because all the things that your kids are like, how do I do the laundry? Ask the chatbot. I've told you, it's in there.
Botty boy.
Oh my God.
So that was nice. That was because also the first 2 hours of me trying to do that were completely futile, and I was like a bit grumpy. And then I went.
Did you need a chatbot to tell you how to use
the chatbot? If anything, he was confusing me even more. The AI chat. And then I went and brought the laundry in, and then I came down, sat down, and then I found, it turns out the chatbot would only work in the Teams app. It wouldn't work in the SharePoint app. And I was trying to do it from the SharePoint app, and it couldn't handle it. But then when I came back after my break, I went in the Teams app and clicked Copilot, and it just, boom. And
I just needed that. Needed a reset, needed a 2-minute fresh air, sunshine.
So yeah, that's been my afternoon. And I've been looking forward to our chat, because I've got a really good story for you.
You've caught me by surprise with who it is.
Have I?
You like hinted it might be one lady, and then we took a diversion, and now it's somebody else. So I'm like,
who did I
who's
hint?
this?
Who did I hint?
You hinted. I don't want to do any spoilers because you might still be working on it. Bath.
Oh, I didn't even look at that one. Isn't that funny? I've got such a long list of and I just cherry pick.
Yeah.
I didn't even.
I think that's the way. You just follow your bliss, and you end up with
what's going on today.
Yeah,
and today is Elizabeth Fry, which is very exciting. Would you like to get into it?
Yeah, let's go.
Got a little intro, of course. So, in 1813, the stench of Newgate Prison was the smell of Britain's darkest despair, a human pit where women and children were locked in riotous filth, awaiting transportation or the gallows. The hopelessness and despair seemed as though it would never end. Until one day, into this hell stepped a Quaker. Instead of recoiling and running to her wealthy mansion, Elizabeth Fry didn't flinch. Instead, she introduced kindness and patchwork quilts to a world that only knew punishment, and in the process, changed the future of prisons, nursing, and women's rights forever. This is the story of the Angel of Prisons, Elizabeth Fry.
Wow, incredible. And I really would not have expected handicrafts to come into it. So this is fascinating.
Handicrafts are the linchpin of this story. So you hold on to that.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So loads of sources today, and particularly Quaker.org. Quaker is going to be a huge feature of what we talk about. ElizabethFry.co.uk, Quaker Tapestry. There you go.
Getting in early with the
crafts. Historic UK. There's others that we'll put in the show notes as well. So let's set the scene a little bit. We're very English today. We meet the daughter of a wealthy Quaker banker. So we're thinking wealthy, we're thinking prominent. There's going to be a few name drops throughout this story, which just shows you the level of wealth we're talking about. The first name is Barclay, as in Barclaycard, as in the bank, the global superpower.
Okay.
Yeah, so her mother came from the Barclay family.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So high society, really
we're
successful.
Very high. Yeah.
Could quite easily rest on our laurels and just play croquet. And
yes, that's true. And also quite a happy childhood, I imagine, because it's easier when you're wealthy. So her parents were a love match, which is quite rare, I think, in some of our stories. It was a very happy household growing up, but most importantly, they were a Quaker family. Do you know what Quaker means?
I know that it is a religious persuasion, but beyond what I've seen in Fleabag and what little I know from kind of Quaker societies in neighborhoods I've lived in, let's say no, I know basically nothing.
Well, you know enough, I think. So it's basically a Christian offset, so a Christian group. It was founded in England in the 1650s, and it's all about direct personal experience of God for everyone. And because of that, it's very individualized. So they often have lots of silent worship, and it's all about serenity and peace. It's very slow living, I would say. And they work on 5 values. They have 5 pillars of their religion. One is equality, peace, integrity, also known as truth, simplicity, and community.
Oh, this sounds
Yeah,
delightful.
right. And then it gets better. They don't use traditional religious structures or paid ministers. They
Loving
have a
it.
shared responsibility throughout the community because everyone has a valuable contribution to make.
Oh, guys.
Maybe we're Quakers on the inside and we just didn't know.
If you could
I
leave
know.
God out of it, I'm in. Like,
Um, and it's still very prominent. Their website was really interesting about how they work today. They don't have like traditional, on this day you do this or you have to worship here. It's very much just whatever fits for your community. Like that's how you gather. So it all looks very different today. It's quite diverse in how they run. But I think in the way it ran in England previously was a little bit more structured. The story today actually is in 1780. So, kind of the time we were talking about Mary Anning, kind of that time.
okay.
So, Mary Anning was south. We're going East England today to Norwich. And Norwich was dominated in the 1700s by the textile industry. They were known for high quality shawls, and it also had a growing bank sector. It had like its mini metropolis of banks because it was so far away from London, so you could set up like another ongoing kind of society there. Both of those things are going to come up quite a lot. We've already mentioned banking and we'll mention crafts going forward. But what comes with big factories in olden times?
I'm thinking pollution and I'm
Yeah,
thinking child labor.
absolutely. Lots of children in factories, and quite scary to me.
Yeah,
I always felt quite scared
dangerous.
when we learned about it as kids. Yeah. So that is just the flip side of the wealthy society that I've pictured. And then actually, as with life, when there's rich people, there's poor people, you might not just see them. So Elizabeth was born in Magdalen Street in Norwich, where she lived until she was 5, and she had 10 siblings in total, so
Wow.
lots of people. Her father was a guy called John Gurney. He moved his family a few miles out of Norwich into a very kind of hamlety kind of place called Earlham. It was an estate, and it didn't belong to them. It was entailed to the Bacon family, but they had such a long lease, the Gurneys, on this estate that loads of generations of family have lived there. And because it was so big, basically, we're thinking big, almost rolling grounds,
Like
meandered around a
Downton
river.
Abbey type
Very,
vibes.
very Downton Abbey. Today it's actually part of the law school there. So East
Oh,
Anglia's law school. So it's still there today. But very, very picturesque, very beautiful. So Elizabeth's there having a lovely time. Her mother sadly dies when she's 12. And that is the biggest mark on Elizabeth's childhood. It was a really big loss, obviously, and she didn't handle it necessarily as well as the others. So she had night terrors. She used to creep into her parents' room and check her mother was still breathing when she was poorly because she was so scared of losing her.
so
And
sad.
yeah, it was a real big anxiety driver for Elizabeth. So when the mother died, her eldest, as happens in history all the time, the eldest daughter then becomes mother, basically. So they kind of close ranks, they pick up the pieces, they just try and move on with their life. Elizabeth was already quite shaky before her mother died anyway. And she was also described as a delicate child, quite a sickly child anyway. So she also had neuralgia, so that confined her to her bed. So I think there was just a lot of anxiety around sickness in general. Her brothers were allowed to go to school, The girls weren't. They were homeschooled. You'd think within a big family, you'd be quite ballsy, wouldn't you? Like you kind of have to fight at the table to be
Yeah.
heard, that kind of thing. But actually, that led Elizabeth even further into like a timid nature, someone who struggled with anxiety, quite isolated. And she was just, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's not, it is just one of those things, isn't it? Some people are quieter, and that's okay. So that kind of sums up her childhood, very blissful, but with a slight blemish here or there. Things get interesting when she marries. So normally it's when they die, but now she's married the man. She marries Joseph Fry in 1800, and this is Joseph Fry from the Chocolate Company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of his work.
Yeah. So Fry's, is Fry's global? Do you have it? It's quite
I
an
don't
English thing to
think
me.
so. I think it's
No.
very English.
Yeah, it's now owned by Cadbury's. People might know Cadbury's,
Oh,
which are
for
then
sure.
owned by somebody else. But anyway, so she married a chocolate man, wonderful, and moved to London. In London, so she meets up with her Quaker buddies because obviously it's a religion. It's a very easy way to tap into a society. And she makes friends. One of those friends is a guy called Stephen Grellett. It's him who actually, when talking to Elizabeth one day, encourages her to visit a local prison. This on top of Quaker beliefs of believing that all people are equal, trying to do good deeds with your life, all integrity, truth, all those things we were talking about earlier. This kind of compels her to visit. She wants to go and see what's going on and see if she can help, right? So this prompts her visit to Newgate Prison. This is the catalyst of the story. This is the moment that really defines her life trajectory, where she's going, what she achieves, what we've learned about today, all within this one visit. So Newgate Prison is in London. At the time, it is known for public executions. So it's a prison, and on the outside they have executions. I don't know. People used to go and see that. It was fun, apparently. Some people like it.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually changed that much as a species, but yes, yeah.
And it was London's most notorious jail. It had been in operation since the 12th century, and it is known as the worst ever prison as from then to today. Like you can see YouTube channels that are calling it the worst ever prison. It was so bad that at one point they just didn't. It's one of those things, like I guess they do it with murderers' houses sometimes, like where it's so dark they just knock it down. It's better just to get rid. And actually today it's where the Old Bailey is.
Oh, okay.
Which is London Central Criminal Court. You'll often see it on BBC News when there's a big case. It's very fancy inside, very fancy pants. And only a small section of the prison remains. So it's mainly the Old Bailey today. So Elizabeth goes to this notorious, horrible, scary prison. And it's so bad that the jailer actually says, "Mom, I don't think you should go in there. Like, I think it's very dangerous." And I think he calls them, I haven't written it down, which is strange. Maybe I have later. I think he calls them animals in the thing. So that's how he's describing it. And he's really trying to warn Elizabeth off. But she insists, she says, "I've told my friend Stephen, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and do this." And in there, what she observes is quite harrowing. It's women and children mixed up in the same places of men, first of all. Crowded, filthy, no beds, no bedding, lack of food, lack of sanitation, just basics are out the window. What I would say is, if you have listened to our Nellie Bly chat, that it's very similar. About we really go into a lot of detail there about details at the time, because Nellie Bly wrote those diaries. So I'd go to that, even though it's across the water, but it's similar time frame. And what I really remember from that chat about Nellie Bly is that the bread was mouldy. When they did get bread, it was covered in mould, and that they used to chuck water, freezing cold water on them to clean them. And, so these are really disgusting conditions. What wasn't mentioned in the Nellie Bly case was children. And here we have the presence of children and people who are awaiting trial, living in these conditions. And a lot of them were awaiting deportation. They were often drunk and violent. this is what Elizabeth was met with. And if you think about from that Downton Abbey, rolling hills, that's where she's come from, and this is what she's seeing. One of the most harrowing lines that I found about this was actually from historian Rosalind Crone, who is from the Open Uni, and she did an article for the BBC on Elizabeth Fry, and she described one of the experiences that Elizabeth had where she saw women taking clothes off a dead baby in order to give them to a living one.
Oh my God.
I know, so it's dark. We're in dark territory.
Sounds like there was no care or sense of like being responsible for these people and their children at all. Like it was just in you go, sort yourselves out.
It was almost like hiding them from society, I guess, right?
That
Like
such a parallel to the Nellie Bly thing, like what's happening behind closed doors. Nobody's aware because why would anyone ever find that out?
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
It is quite it's quite gut wrenching. It's quite sick because I haven't even spoken about the smell. Can you imagine how it would
Oh
smell?
my God. That place was in situ being run that way since the 1200s.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
bear thinking about.
Fry describes it as a dreadful scene of misery, riot, idleness, and vice of every description. So, prim lady in society, you would think that Elizabeth would dust her dress off, put her bonnet on, and walk out and carry on with her day. Probably feeling very grateful, I imagine, probably feeling very thankful. But then, oh, that's not for me. But that's not what happens at all. If anything, she continues to visit. So this became the first of many, many visits that Elizabeth would make to Newgate Prison. Where Elizabeth comes from is pure empathy. Just like you, Cara, just like you were sharing a few minutes ago. But she wanted to help, and she was inspired by these women in squalor to help push for better conditions. So just to kind of get a sense of what Elizabeth was feeling at that time. This is a quote from her journal, if you're happy to read that for us.
This has been a time of deep humiliation to me, this witnessing the effect of the consequences of sin. The poor creature murdered her baby, and how inexpressibly awful now to have her life taken away.
Oh. Yeah, that was the description of a female prisoner who was awaiting execution. So it just shows that it's bleak, isn't it? It is hella bleak.
The extreme margins. And I'm sure we all have questions about how robust courts and process of proving guilt were. So you wonder how many people were there.
So true.
Who should not have been.
Who were innocent, right? Yeah, 100%. And I think it also kind of shines what reality was, because I think we look back on that time as a society, and to me anyway, I do, of charm, and like you think Oliver Twist, you think Sweeney Todd, you think all these things where we've made it into an entertaining thing. But actually, when you start to think about this woman sat there, she killed her baby because she knew she was going to die. Like, what do you pull from that? That is positive, So this is what Fry is presented with, but she goes on a mission. And Professor Rosalind Crone, she explains 3 ways that Elizabeth goes about this. First off, she gets women prisoners looked after by women officers. Really plain, really simple. She gets them supervised by a superintendent or a matron, and she makes sure that the women are safe. They do not have access to men unless they are chaperoned by a female. And this is how ladies should be and be treated and things like that. That's kind of where she's coming from. So that's the first fundamental thing she charges for. The second is that these prisoners don't have anything to do. They're just sat there in their thoughts, in their despair. And what's the answer to that? Crafts. He's like, I know what's going to fix this. Sewing, knitting, quilting. And she uses her contacts from the textile world, from her big business contacts, to bring products in so that they can knit and sew and thing. But actually, in the end, what the women, when she taught the women how to make these things, they were so good that they were sellable. So then she had a network of people on the outside of the prison that you could sell products to and give the earnings back to the women so that they could, I don't know, afford a solicitor, afford something to, in order to get them out of that hellhole. So she occupies their time through crafting. And then she also occupies their time through reading, writing, schooling, arithmetic, all that kind of stuff, just basic life skills, right? And then the final thing that she wanted to do with them was, which is probably the hardest one, is convince them of religion. So convince them that if they opened up to God, if they repented for their sins, they would turn their lives around and help create a better society outside of prison. So she had a three-prong attack, very strategic. She knew what she was doing, and she knew better than to ask for permission. She just did it. She didn't want to ask the authorities. She didn't want to ask the City of London. She kind of just was like sneaking wool in, like, and just visiting.
In her view, like it had been neglected and ignored to the detriment of it and everybody who was involved with it. So, they had their chance. So why should she?
So she kind of does this in secret, she kind of gets this going under the radar. She brings a band of ladies, quote unquote, together called the Ladies Newgate Association, because she has on the outside a network of Quaker people who are living by her values. So very easy to convince that this is the right way to go because you've got that affiliation. And then she actually started bringing people into mental specific women prisoners, so to really build those relationships, which is just so, oh my God, admirable. It's amazing. Then once it's going well, once she's like, actually this is a success and things have got calmer, that and she had, I guess, evidence, didn't she, that the behavior has changed, that these people aren't causing a ruckus, they're not dangerous, they're sat here knitting, for heaven's sake. It's a different vibe, isn't it? So when she had that first discussion with the warden right at the start, so in April 1817, which I think is 4 years, 4 years after she first visited, that's when she takes it to the authorities. That's when she's like, okay, this is enough now. So that's a long, and it just shows you how secret it was, doesn't it? Like very under the radar, slowly catchy monkey. People in the authorities, traditionally male, I imagine, were absolutely flabbergasted at the change of the women. They were known to be quiet, obedient, sober, because they had other purposes in life, right? So this is just a quote about Elizabeth reflecting on her time at Newgate and what she managed to do.
To my surprise, we have been enabled to demonstrate how much may be done amongst these unhappy outcasts merely by kindness accompanied by instruction and employment.
Quite right.
I love not only that she had the right instincts about how to help, but that she had the cunning, the nous, to sit on it until she had mounted enough evidence to irrefutably say, this has worked. It is working. Let's go. Let's do this everywhere.
It's killer, right? It's really cool. And off the back of that, she just kept building it. So in 1821, she formed the British Society of Ladies for Promoting the Reformation of Female Prisoners, which is quite a mouthful. We could probably give her some marketing tips, but that's fine.
Could be snappier.
But she was like, hey, this is Newgate. Newgate is the worst, but it's not the only one, right? There's going to be so many more prisons out there. Like you said, let's go. And she had a system in place. She was ready. In 1823, the Girls Act was introduced into Parliament, and it actually used some of her ideas. So that made it law to have separate areas for men and women in mixed prison, and women guards for women prisoners. And it's stuff like this you just take for granted nowadays, don't you? But actually there had to be a time where someone was like, yeah, we should really write this down.
Like it seems like common sense, but
yeah. And it just kept escalating and escalating. So she travelled widely throughout the country, meeting different heads of authorities and things like that. And she even met with Queen Victoria And not only just met Queen Victoria, which is a big thing. Bearing in mind, Queen Victoria was the head of the British Empire back then. She was a very, very, very important lady. She'd convinced Queen Victoria to give her money to help with the campaign. And if you think of like off with her head royalty kind of reputation of monarchs back then, to be giving money to people in squalor and to people who are the outcasts, the bad eggs of society, Elizabeth must have done some pretty sweet talking, right?
Yeah,
She
she
had a
must have
way.
been persuasive.
So we don't just stop there. We meet Queen Victoria, but we also meet other heads of state. So we are going wide with our prison reform. She actually writes a book, which is UK based, so Scotland and north of England, but she does do this across seas as well. In her book, she writes that she often stayed the night in prisons, and not only her, but she would invite noble people to come and stay and see for themselves the condition of the prisons. So she's like, you have no idea. Come and have a look and see for yourself, and then you'll get what I'm talking about. I don't know how she did it. I can't even get people to write a report. So I don't know how she managed to get people to stay the night in prison. But, you know, she really did influence and, you know, come and see for yourselves. It's this kindness that helped her gain the friendship of the prisoners themselves when they, especially when they see the improvements in their conditions. And it so happened that one of her many brother-in-laws, remember she's got 10 siblings, happened to be an MP. So he was elected.
I mean, statistically, it was going to happen. That's just
You're
so
right.
many people. Like
so many people in high society. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? So this is Thomas Fowell Buxton, and he becomes basically her beeline to Westminster. She's got his ear. We know how persuasive she is. She gets these people to spend the night in prison like it's fun. And he begins promoting her work in and around his network of MPs in Parliament. Like I said, we do go overseas. So she does go to Ireland in 1827 and visits a women prison in there. She encouraged the people of Belfast, the women of Belfast, to organise their own committee, because she's like, look, this is what we did. If you set up a committee or an association, you can really get stuff done. And she managed to help not just prisons, but also poorhouses as well. Just a cheeky reminder that she is married and she comes from a big family, and she continues to have a big family, and she has 11 children during this time as well.
Oh, time.
God, and who wants that? 11 is so many.
Too many. But then she probably didn't like hands-on parent them in the way that you or I would be thinking.
Yes,
she
that's
probably
true.
like went, there you go, off you go to nurse.
A nanny each. Yeah, if we've got Barclay money, it's a nanny per child, isn't it? So, but this is a really interesting detail I found, was that actually her husband went bankrupt himself in 1828. Yeah. So they couldn't afford to live in fancy London anymore. They moved to West Ham, Upton Lane. Not offending. We're not offending anyone.
People in West Ham are like, what the hell, man? Like, I paid a lot to live here. At the time, it was the outer margins.
It's all contextual team. Her brother then becomes the business manager for her husband. Because of that, and he could control the bankruptcy, that meant that she could continue to do her work. She wasn't like forced into employment or anything, heaven forbid. But it also means that I think it was a really interesting detail, because it reaffirms that you can fall at any time. Like, you are no different from these people in this prison. Like, you know, if you were born in different circumstances, or if you had different circumstances put upon you, you could quite easily be in that situation. And it just highlights again the need for kindness.
That's a really good point. So it's sort of just a life lesson in humility. If you can go broke trying to sell chocolate, nobody's safe. Like, everyone wants that.
Everyone wants chocolate. It's a need. So I've kind of whizzed through a big timeline there. We're now in like 1820s, but I just want to take a little meander back, just a little loopy back to 1818, because this was a big time in Fry's life. Like I said, she'd got her Newgate system up and running, and she was actually invited to give evidence. This is not just an opinion. This is hard fact evidence to the House of Commons. in the British Parliament. Doing that, she became the first woman ever to present evidence in the Houses of Parliament. So that's quite a cool
Wow.
accolade, isn't it? Yeah, and actually, the word evidence really stuck out to me because that means they're going to believe what she says because it's evidence, it's fact, isn't it? It's
She's
not.
an expert. She's coming in.
Yeah,
How astute
authority.
of them to recognize her skill and
Yeah,
knowledge,
yeah.
not
I
just an
loved it.
opinion,
I thought it was brilliant.
evidence.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but 1818 is also another very key year in Elizabeth's life because it's the year where the government decide to send women convicts to Australia. This is a dark part. I don't know if you ever saw the series Banished on BBC. It was like a six-part drama, and it had that guy. Russell Tovey, I think the guy
Oh, I
is.
like
Yeah, he's in
him.
everything. He's
Yeah,
just brilliant. He's just been
he's in
part of
everything.
everyone's life for so long. Yeah, he was in it. I loved it. It was about 10 years ago now. I thought it was brilliant. I'd recommend digging it out on the iPlayer. It got cancelled quickly, I think, because it was very expensive to run, but it follows the what happened when the ships landed on the beaches in Australia and what
Oh, I
happened then.
see.
Yeah, it's very
Oh,
interesting. As you can imagine, taking the facts of what we've learned about Newgate and the prisons, you can probably imagine what the conditions were like in Australia and on the way to Australia. So
oh.
we've got a couple of quotes here. They're quite meaty.
Transportation was traumatic. The women and children were herded into flat carts, manacled and wearing leg irons. They were then pulled through the streets to the jeers of the townspeople, pelted with rotten fruit and vegetables and sods of soil, arriving at the ship terrified and filthy. They remained in the ship's hold for the entire 17-week voyage.
17 weeks we're on this damn ship. Isn't that insane?
Comfort of a sea, of a ship at that time in history was diabolical, even for people who paid a fortune for
Yes,
luxury.
that's so true.
I to not see the sun or the horizon, and presumably most of these people will never have been in a boat in their lives. That is beyond human endurance. That is
It's disgusting.
absolutely, and for children to be treated that way, they've done nothing wrong. No one should face that. Oh, I feel very strongly about boats, as you know. This
Yes,
is
as I do
this
know.
is really quite upsetting. Oh,
I'm sorry, it's not the end of the boat
oh,
saga. So, but don't you worry. So, if Elizabeth reformed Newgate Prison under the radar very quickly, what do you think she does with the boats?
come on, Elizabeth. Come on.
Hmm. And her staple is crafts. They make a reappearance. Don't you worry. We're going to craft our way out of this. Okay. So Elizabeth arranged that women would be transported in closed carriages, unmanacled, at night, and allowed food out of the hold once the ship had sailed a mile, because by the time it had been a mile, it was too far to swim back. Like if they
Yeah.
jumped, they jumped, right? The boredom of the 17-week voyage would often lead to fighting and gambling. So
Yeah.
Elizabeth was like, I know how to combat this fighting and gambling. I've got some crafting that you can be doing while you're on there. So here's an explanation of what Elizabeth's solution was.
Each woman was to have a bag of useful things containing clothing, a comb and brush, soap and towels, a Bible, spectacles, a plate, cutlery, material, wadding, needles, a thimble, and threads. Everything needed to make a patchwork quilt during those long days at sea. Over 12,000 prisoners received a bag, and Elizabeth Fry visited each of their 106 ships.
Yeah, she went on every ship and gave out her goods. It's the cutest
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
I know.
I,
It's
I
amazing.
that like bread and roses thing of we don't just need to feed and keep these people physically safe, which obviously we do, but that is necessary but not sufficient. We also need to recognize they're thinking, feeling human beings just like we are. They need something to do. And what a babe. I love her.
The detail that really got me was spectacles. Like, to me, that was just so holistic. And so it was like, well, yeah, they're going to need to see what they're doing. And it was just like,
Dark in a ship's hold. I mean, yeah.
yeah. And
Oh,
I bet they probably never had spectacles before. You know
that
what
would
I
have been
mean?
life-changing for people,
Yeah.
actually.
And we're not just quilting for the fun of it, Cara. Like, quilting is fun, but it's going to help these people even more because when the ships would dock, prospective employers would meet the ships for free labour. And obviously, it's better to be in the labour world than it is to be homeless.
Mm.
And a well made quilt would show that the convicts were industrious, clean, and willing to work quietly at a given task. So that's their
Well,
CV.
like, behold.
Yeah, here's my CV. I can do this. So she didn't just give them a fun project to do. She gave them self-respect. She gave them hope. She gave them a longevity. And this starting of this work was actually what would lead to the abolition of transportation in 1837. So not only was like, this is terrible, I'm going to fix it, she's going to root cause this as well. And actually, the ships did stop sailing to America in 1837. There's a quote from Rosalind Kroon there, if you could read that for me.
I just think it's remarkable because you see it just spreading through society. It then becomes a thing in hospitals too, that women should be taken care of by women, or that there should be some kind of female chaperone present. It's something we take for granted now when we go to the GP, she added. So true.
Which is true, isn't it? And it's a beautiful segue into another door of the vestibule of what Fry got up to, because in 1840 she opened a training school for nurses in Guy's Hospital. Yeah. So she was so strong on women and those pillars again of Quakers, we keep going back to that, of serving your community and integrity and equality and peace. And that's what she wanted to spread. So she started the Institution of Nursing Sisters. And it was actually this program that inspired Florence Nightingale to be one of Fry's nurses to assist people in the Crimean War. Now, the
That's
Crimean War
so
comes up a lot in this
interesting.
pod.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's not only Florence Nightingale that was inspired by Elizabeth Fry. Florence Nightingale meets Betsy Carwada in one of our episodes, who has her own journey and her own miraculous things going on. And it just shows how many women were changing history at this time in their own ways, right? It's very exciting. And basically, she was just developing saints after saints after saints. She just made this like conveyor belt of them. And this was on top of her prison reform, her humanitarian efforts, like we explained with the ships. And she sought to tackle a variety of social issues. On top of this, she also improved the life of the homeless by setting up shelters in London, opening up soup kitchens. This particular endeavour was inspired when she saw the dead body of a young child who didn't survive winter that year. And she was like, okay, I can do something about this. You'll notice there's a trend throughout all her endeavours that they're specifically to help women and children, but particularly those who are having a hard time of it, just like she was at risk of when she became bankrupt. Elizabeth's desires for better overall conditions in different institutions also included the proposed reform of mental asylums. Again, this harks back to Nellie Bly and what she did with mental asylums. So it's very much just seeing a fire, tackling it, seeing a fire, tackling it. And because of that, she becomes so widespread, both geographically, but in also types of challenges that people are facing. And alongside her fellow Quakers, she does eventually start campaigning for the abolition of slavery. She does a
Such a
lot.
natural fit, isn't it? That you
Yes.
see the way that people are having to live and you think, no. And it just opens your eyes, I suppose, to more and more of what's
And why
wrong.
not? Especially if you're getting successes from them, especially if you're seeing the real powerful work of quilting. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to show it to somebody else, or helping it helps a different marginalized society. It's wonderful, and it is. And I don't think she could have got as far as she could without the Quaker community, because she had that network set up ready to go, didn't she? She just
Yeah.
tapped into it. Both the Quaker community and, I guess, her industry contacts. Let's leverage that. And that is very smart. Elizabeth passed away in 1845. More than 1,000 people attended her memorial.
Oh,
It's insane, isn't it? And there's lots of legacy things to note about her. Probably the most easy reference is that she was on the British £5 note for, I can't remember how long it was, for about 15 years, something like that. And I found an interesting blog about it that actually that wouldn't have sat well with her because it's
oh,
everywhere. And because of her Quaker values, I guess, but also if we hark back to that anxious child who was isolated and quiet and timid and scared, she probably didn't want that. It doesn't really fit with that personality of that child we started with, does it?
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting note in the blog. Anyway, yeah, I thought it was cool.
Counterpoint.
Yeah.
If I was her as an introvert, now dead, and able somehow to comment on it, I would like to think that I would be pleased to be an example that you can have hope and challenge things that are really, truly unacceptable and terrible and make a difference. Because, her image being on that note might have inspired somebody to go find out about her. And that might have inspired them to think, okay, stuff can change. So hopefully her like overall
Hmm.
opinion of it would be positive. Because I think yeah,
It is
come on,
pretty.
Elizabeth,
That
take
was
the win.
beautiful. I really hope so. She also has a statue at the now Old Bailey. It is phenomenal, the statue. It
Oh,
is marble. It is massive. It's in the most beautiful hall that they've got. It's very Gringotts in Harry Potter. It's stunning. And obviously, that is the site of the notorious prison Newgate, where she began all her tireless work to improve things. And also, I think Queen Victoria's like round the corner.
wow.
Yeah, there's lots of blue plaques and different things around the country, both in Norwich and in London. There is the Elizabeth Fry Refuge, which was established to provide shelter for destitute women, particularly those released from prison. There's lots of institutions and buildings named after her, and quite right, because she was an absolutely incredible woman. Her legacy, like literally just as you said, there is like a beacon of hope. All these legacies are very much a testament to all the power, the compassion, the determination. And she saw that the absolute awful conditions for women in places like that prison, and she didn't walk away. She
Mm.
chose to stay. She chose to fight it. She chose to fix things. And she believed in her values so strongly that it just rippled throughout her life. And she showed that people can be treated with dignity and not punishment, and that actually the rehabilitation does work. And her work shouts that when you approach the world's toughest problems with kindness and practicality, you can spark monumental, lasting change. And yeah, what a powerful legacy that is.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that. What an admirable person. What a
She's kick
charming.
ass, right? She's
Yeah,
kick
that is
ass. And yet
incredible.
serene, because she's Quaker and we're all about peace and,
She
serenity.
wasn't getting agitated. She was
Yeah,
just
she was
doing
just
her thing.
calm. And she's like, have you tried quilting? Have you tried this as an answer to your problems?
I love it. And score one for the introverts out there, because she is live-in proof that it does not mean that you are, she was a timid child, but she certainly was not a timid adult. She met
Hmm.
problems that most people would just go, oh, no,
Yeah.
and she thought, okay, let's think about this. What can we do?
And she must have had such a way with people as
Oh,
well.
for sure.
With the prisoners, the networking she did on the outside, the trade route. She must have been such a contrary to what we depicted her as a child, such a people person.
I think that's the thing that gets forgotten sometimes, that people who are quiet are listening. They're not necessarily
they're nice.
speaking. They're thinking. They're thinking before they speak, which is a gift I don't have. But, she had that to be able to persuade people to come and stay in the prison.
Oh my God.
Thank you for listening to this episode of She Changed History. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Find us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got any ideas of women you'd like us to cover in a future episode, please comment on the socials or email us at shechangedhistory@gmail.com. Catch you next time.